So now you're working with Hal Needham and Burt Reynolds. What was it like for a guy from Ellerby, North Carolina, to be teamed up with All Out Hollywood?
Well, first of all, you're so busy racing. I mean, you don't have a lot of time for other stuff except whatever you might be involved with while you're doing the race weekends. You know, Hal coming in or having some of his fans or friends come with him or something of that nature. And then the other opportunities, you might be on the West Coast or something. You might have a little different exposure to stuff, but not as much as you might think. But Hal was such a guy. Hal was just a down-to-earth. Y'all went around. Steve, I know Steve hadn't seen him around. He was just a down-to-earth, people-loving man that wanted everybody. He wanted to be friends with everybody. He wanted to treat everybody well, and he wanted to get along with everybody. And he just loved life.
Now, it's always been my understanding that at some point when Harry and you guys were having some bad luck or whatever, that sockets were consulted, and I think that there was a witch doctor that was brought in at one point. What was Travis Carter's reaction to that?
I was a little bit embarrassed, but I knew Hal had a way of. Hal could do some weird things and get away with it. People would accept it. What really happened? He got this guy to pretend. You know the guy that did the big old coconut thing, voice or something, a witch guy that's like 7 feet tall and all that mess and some of it. The movie Live and Let Die. You remember that guy that popped out of the thing? It kind of looked like that.
He passed away recently. He was big on Broadway. I know you're talking about.
But I don't know if it's that guy, but Hal got him to come in Atlanta, Charlotte Motor Speedway, in a limo, drive him in, get out, do all this mess. But Dale Inman, poor Dale Inman, that was the year we were racing Terry for the championship, '84. And but Dale just like went nuts. I mean, he really, like he legitimately was afraid of that thing.
Wow.
And he just went to the Dick Beatty and the NASCAR people and said, y'all got to get this out of here. And they went to Hal and said, look, man, they said, you really caused stirring up some stuff. We need to get that out. So he kind of put that on the shelf and went away. But you know, they came up with bandettes. They had girls dressed as cheerleaders at one point early on. I think it was in '81 or '82. Just some different stuff. But Hal Needham had a vision because he came from Hollywood. He worked, he worked on a lot of movies. He worked on several series. I know he said he worked on the Laramie series. I'm trying to remember. I can't remember all. Have Gun Will Travel. As a stuntman, he did some movies with John Wayne. Did those Smoking the Bandit movies. Entertainment. He said this motorsports is entertainment. It needs to be entertaining. So he wanted to put a new element to the entertainment side of it. And that was his contribution.
This may be the most important question that we ask, but were you in the movie Stroker Ace?
No.
Well, that's just disappointing.
My wife was, and Ann Hayes was, because they saw it somewhere not long ago, and you could see them in the suite for about 10 seconds.
Yeah. Your wife was, really?
Yeah, just, you know how they have people take that. But I wasn't in it, no.
Jay Wells was in it. Alexis Laris was in it. So
and somehow you missed it.
I didn't get in. Was Harry Gant always a plan to be the driver going to '81 two seasons, or were things just not progressing with Stan Merritt?
It was not. No, it was not a part of the original plan.
Okay.
The only thing that developed us when we started, and it's looking back on it, you're so dumb and naive, or dumber and more naive than you are today, or where I am. But I don't think Stan had ever driven a race car. So Harry had worked with us at Junior a little bit and run some, what they call sportsman races and stuff. And I got to know Harry, and I said, Harry, Harry had been one of those that kind of go around and test drive for people and all that stuff. And I said, we need somebody to go, trying to help figure this car out, because this guy never drove. So Harry had kind of worked himself in, and then like at Rockingham, he'd get in and practice in it. At Atlanta, he'd get in and practice in it. Like at Rockingham, he run faster than a pole in that car. Atlanta, he run a lap faster than the pole had been qualified. And so when things weren't progressing well with Stan, Hal and them thought, well, what we could do is bring Stan along, put Harry in a car, and maybe we'd be more competitive and get the sponsor more out of it. So that's kind of how we got with him. And Steve, I never knew, and to this day, we went to Michigan with 2 cars in the trailer. 33 and 22. And they told me that Stan was not gonna be there. And I still do not know to this day why he never raced anymore.
Never heard that.
Wow.
Nobody has ever sat down and said, this is what happened. And I just, I was going about my business, managing the team and doing what we did, and I guess I never pressed anybody.
Harry finally got his first Cup win in the spring race at Martinsville in '82 after a lot of second place finishes. Was not winning at the Cup level something that ever seemed to concern him, or was Harry just Harry about all that?
I think Harry was one of those guys that was, he felt like, hey, I'm giving it 100% every race I run, every week, and it's going to be what it's going to be, and if it falls in and we win, that'd be great, but if I finish second or third, I've done all I can do. And he didn't, I don't think he had, he was like all the rest of us, disappointed, but he didn't have any regrets. He didn't complain to us. He wasn't a complainer.
There was a joke going around the circuit after Harry finished second about 7 or 8 times.
It was a lot of time.
A lot of
I'll tell you
times.
that.
There's a story going around there. Harry went to a Lou's Howland barber shop, and it only had one seat, and somebody was in the seat. Oh no, I messed it up. The seat was empty, and the barber said, "You're second."
That's possible. That's possible. He'd take that in good nature, though.
Sure would.
What do you remember about the race itself at Martinsville that he won, that first one? I know that he finished up with a pretty banged up right front fender.
I do remember that. If it's the race I think it was, Butch Lindley, Emmanuel Zavakis had Butch Lindley there, and he ran really good. And Harry, I don't know, he might have gotten into him, not deliberately, but Harry was one of those that what he wanted to do at Martinsville to improve the brake cooling, he wanted to knock the fenders, quote, knock the fenders off of it.
He wanted to.
Well, he knew it would help it. If you opened up the front and get good airflow. See, he didn't worry about aerodynamics.
Yeah.
He wasn't focused on that like they are probably today. But he wanted to get good air, so he was thrilled to death to have it all beat up and banged up so the brakes will run cooler, and the brakes are better when they don't overheat.
What's your very best Burt Reynolds story?
That you can share.
Yeah.
Well, people know about it, and he's gone. I guess I can tell this one. I hope this is not wrong. No, let's don't tell this story. I don't want to.
Yeah,
I don't know a good story about Burt Reynolds. Did you say Burt Reynolds story?
Yeah.
No, I don't. We never saw Burt that much.
Okay. All right.
So I don't know that I could actually have a good story other than what something Hal may have told us, and I've probably forgotten all of that.
Yeah.
1984, you mentioned it a little while ago, but you did finish just 65 points behind Terry Labonte for the championship. Was there a specific turning point, or did the brakes just not fall your way for that championship?
Well, late in the year, we're doing good. I remember at Bristol, we finished 5th, I believe, and we've been running real well. And I think we had some kind of trouble, and I remember having to get under there and change the strut rod or do something, I forgot. But we finished 5th, and I thought we could win this championship. So we're getting in good shape, and we win. I guess if that was in '84, Darlington would have been next. We won that Southern 500 pretty easily, actually.
Yeah.
We were a really dominant car. We had kind of hit on this is interesting, we'd hit on a good setup back in the spring, and he would have won that race, but of course the luck Harry has, I mean, he'd have flat tires. Nobody else on that dang racetrack would have a flat tire, but he'd have a flat tire, and we had one that day. And he about made it up on a lap on Darrell Walterbone on the green, but the time ran out, and Darrell won, but he had the car to beat that race. So we came back and won in the fall, run good at the other races, but the kicker was at Atlanta. Second race from the end, and we knew we weren't going to be great at Riverside, and we knew Terry would be better. So we're running along, and Terry had some kind of engine trouble. Next thing you know, Harry said something broken on this car or something to that effect. He comes in, broken hub. Darrell Waltrip, it had rained the race out, I think, for a week, and we had to delay a week. But I remember in the last practice, Darrell coming over and telling me, or one of our guys, he said, there's smoke coming from that car somewhere, because he followed it. We searched that car prior to the race, could not find anything wrong. But ultimately, it broke a hub in the race. But it was a titanium hub. You weren't supposed to be running anyway. So that put us, that could have won the championship had we just run the race and finished the race. I think we'd have been okay.
Just finish, you would have.
It would have been, because Terry, I think, out not actually not finishing the race. Of course, he just, he cleaned our clock at Riverside. I think he won the pole and the race and everything out there. But had we not had trouble at Atlanta, finished as normal, I think the championship would have been his. So there you go. Running something you're not supposed to run, it bites you.
What was it like going through that? You'd won the championship in '73. You'd won it again in '78. But everybody else on that team was basically new to the.
The Skoll team members
Yeah.
had not been exposed to that.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's disappointed. I tell you, that team was a good team, and people, they worked hard, and they were a together team too. I mean, the one thing that I'm very pleased about my past history with motorsports teams and NASCAR teams is I always work with teams that seem to be together.
Yeah.
But it, part of it was no credit to me, but part of it was my goal to help create that atmosphere.
I think you did very well. I will say, as a story on the side, I believe they were having the media tour one year, and went to your shops. And I knew all your crewmen. I told you a story about the picture companies. I went in time back where they were working, and one of them, I forgot his name, came up to me and started talking. Before I knew it, every one of them had cried around to listen to what we're all talking about. And they ended up, just laughing and having a good time. So, but you hit a pretty dry spell. 86, 87.
That was bad.
Was there something particular going on?
Well, they changed it, they went to that coupe car, and I think that probably changed and improved a lot of people. We seem to have we hit on a couple of things that we could do better with that lower downforce car, I think. And plus Harry could drive a car that's about 2/3 sideways anyway, and that helped us a lot. And when other people got to the point they could run better, it just kind of threw everything out that we were doing. And it's like so many people, it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks, and so you got a setup that you run at Darlington. Well, it doesn't work anymore. Then you got a setup you run so-and-so, that won't work anymore. Next thing you know, you're scrambling around and you just all fuddled up and missing the boat everywhere you turn.
What was Harry's reaction to that?
He just, I think he became a little bit frustrated, especially in the last year. Yeah, and I would get frustrated too. And I told Hal, I said, look, man, I don't know what to do. I'm doing the best I can do. I said, if you got want somebody to step in, I'll step aside. You get somebody in here to do this thing. I don't want to be the guy that holds your team back. So
Harry broke his leg in the 600 in 1988, and he missed several races. How big of an impact did that have, if any, on Hal selling the team and getting out of the sport? Or had that decision already been made?
It was made the night before the race.
Of the 600? Oh, really? What happened?
Hal was involved with developing this camera car for the movie industry.
I remember that, yeah.
And apparently the people at U.S. Tobacco had invested into that company. And I think they decided they wanted him to focus on that and not focus on the race team. Now, how much is actually that to be factual, I don't know. That's what I was told. I know we had a dinner the night before the World 600. I go in and Hal Needham sitting at a table. It looked like his steam coming out of his ears. He looked like he don't know if he wants to scream or cry. He looked really upset. And I said, what's wrong, man? He said, they told me I had to sell or want me to sell my race team. And that was the night before that 600.
And then Harry broke his leg.
Well, they had, they had a lot of tire failures the next day.
Yeah.
Was there ever a chance that you might go to Leo Jackson's team, or owning your own team, was that something already in your mind?
Well, I think, to me, the powers that be at U.S. Tobacco and associated people didn't want me involved in it anymore. They deliberately wanted to get a whole new deal where they had in my opinion, it gave them opportunity to have more control over things. Because I was kind of like a crew chief manager, and I think I don't think they liked that. So, anyway, that's why they chose to go a different route.
So there was never a chance that Harry and Skull would come with you to?
No.
Okay,
no.
all right. How did Rick Mast come to be your driver in '89? Now,
Well,
were you the owner of the team in '89?
No. A guy
Okay.
named Bill Edwards.
Okay, all right.
Bill Edwards. He lived lived down in Mount Holly. Y'all know where Mount Holly is,
Yeah,
somewhere
yeah,
down there. He had a pipe business where they install pipes to, contract work. He bought that stuff from Hal Needham, and he wanted to run some races. And I can't remember exactly how we settled with Rick, but because we didn't have any prior association with him other than just we thought he had some potential. And I guess we gave him an opportunity that he was willing to take, and went to Daytona with a car that we had the year before. Actually, during the period Harry was hurt, Morgan Shepherd had driven that car in July and ran good in it. And so we went to that same car. And I tell people, of all the years I went to Daytona, that was the easiest speed weeks I ever had in 1989.
Really?
It went smooth. We went and tested. It was a unique car. Manuel Savakis had actually built that car. And you've heard the term rear steer, front steer, and all that stuff. And maybe your listeners know a little bit about it. That car could be converted to run either. So we went and tested it. We tested it both ways. It drove better. Once you realized you had the radial tires, the rear steer cars just did not drive well. Front steer car, tested all that, tested a couple of engines. Rick Mast ran pretty good, went and qualified like 11th fastest. And it was just a smooth, easy week.
And then he wound up leading some in the race and wound up finishing
Well,
sixth.
if we'd been willing to gamble, there's a slim chance he might have could have won. It was a fuel deal, but from my perspective, I'm saying to myself, okay, it'd be great to win this race. It'd be worse to get egg on your face. All we need to do is get down about 3 laps to go and run out of gas. This guy has driven his tail off all day. He's run well. He deserves to finish good, and it's wrong for me to make a decision that would cost him a good finish. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, Darrell, putted around like he managed to do and knew what he was doing, and, just barely stays in front of not getting lapped and winds up having enough fuel to finish and win the race.
Was being a car owner easier, more difficult, or about what you expected?
At the time, it's about what I expected. But it's none of it's easy. Because first of all, you never can raise enough money, and nobody's ever satisfied.
Yeah.
Pretty much sets the table, doesn't it?
You can't. If you don't win every week, somebody's not going to be satisfied, and then there's never enough money because you can always spend more. I mean, you can only imagine what these people are probably spending today. It's unheard of, but I tell you something, guys. When I was working for LG DeWitt, and I realized that this was probably going to be my life's work, my goal was to be a team owner early on. I mean, I didn't tell people that, but in my mind and heart, that's where I wanted to go with it.
You had Jimmy Spencer for quite some time in the cars. When he would say get into it with another driver, which he did, not always, but did you ever talk with the other team and try to straighten things out, or did you just back Jimmy all the way, or did you stay out of it?
I would do some of all of that. There were occasions where I stayed out of it. There were occasions where, not as it happened, but after the thing, I would sit down with Jimmy and say, look, Jimmy, let me tell you something, bud. When I think you're right, I'm behind you 100%. When I think you're wrong, you can't ask me to be behind you, because that's just not fair. And there were a couple of occasions that there were, if we had issues with other drivers, I would be happy to go talk to them and kind of not apologizing, probably didn't mean a whole lot, but just say, look, I understand the situation. I'm working with this guy. He wants to race hard. We're trying to do some good with him, and we'll continue to try to, hopefully we'll all get better.
How did the Smoking Joe's deal come about with the 23 car? How big a factor was Junior in all that?
He was probably pretty big. I know, Wayne Robertson and Junior were always close. People have to, one thing that people lose sight of in this industry is they might not be a NASCAR had Junior Johnson not talked Ralph Seagrave into going and sit down and talking to Bill France Jr.
Yeah.
Back in the mid-70s, or 70, whenever it started.
71.
Yeah.
I mean, things were not, I mean, they were struggling. The promoters were struggling to pay purses, all those things. I mean, this is all real. And rather than Junior taking the money to be a sponsor, which they actually approached him about, he suggested they become a serious sponsor. So with that said, Junior obviously had a close association with R.J. Reynolds and the people therein. And I think Wayne realized they wanted to have a team, and Junior, I think, suggested maybe that he'd go talk to me about setting up a team that he would help it get going and help be involved in it some, and that's how we started in '94. And after about 2 years, I actually paid Junior for what he deemed to be the value of his interest in it, and it all became mine. About '96 probably.
The reason why I asked that, one of the reasons why I asked that is I eat breakfast right across the street from those shops basically every day of the world up there in Hampton.
Yeah.
So,
Junior had those buildings, and he wanted to have a use for
Right.
those buildings, and
Yeah.
we made a deal to do all that, and then it just, that was from Denver's 50 minutes for me to drive. Of course, now it'd probably take an hour and 10 minutes, but I wanted to have a different place, and Wayne wanted to be, the reason we came here in Statesville, Wayne wanted to go to Winston-Salem. He said, I'd like to see a team in Winston-Salem, close to where I can go over there and all. I said, Wayne, look, man, I live in Denver and kids in school in Denver. I'm not moving to Winston-Salem. I said, what if we meet in the middle? And that's how we wound up with Statesville. And I got to work with the people, G.O. Wilson, good friends across the street, or builders, commercial builders. One of the guys, he's a salesman and all that, and he found this land, and that's how we started, and we built this building. This building, of course, that one came on after Darrell came here.
Yeah, tell us about working with Darrell in his last year, his drive.
So what's that question, Steve?
About Darrell, working with Darrell Walter last year.
Difficult. And I'm not being critical. I think, for one thing, it was like in December when the thing came together. We didn't have a place to work, we didn't have equipment, we didn't have cars built. We started in a hole with him. And that wasn't fair to him or to us, actually, but the opportunity was there, so you don't pass those things up. Because, see, one thing that I had strived to do, and I could see on the horizon that as being a single car owner whose sole business was motorsports, I knew I couldn't survive. Because, other people who, you got, like the guy on this building we're sitting in, he's not in racing business, he's got some other business. And Rick Hendricks and all those people. And I said, I need to get involved with somebody who's got money. So that's how this opportunity with Carl Haas came along. I knew I needed somebody with deep pockets to be associated with. So that's how and incidentally, Rick Mast was the guy that we had planned to drive this car when this thing was all starting to develop. And then the people at Kmart kind of decided at the last minute thought they wanted somebody with a little higher profile. And Darrell heard about it and called me and asked if he could get this job. And of course they liked that opportunity because he was a 3 or 4 time champion, whatever. And they thought he was a higher profile name and would get a better return.
You came up in the sport as a crew chief, and you were used to being under the hood of the car, and used to having your hands dirty, and now you're a car owner. Was it difficult to split your time between working on a car and doing the business side of it?
I'm an old-fashioned guy. And one of my problems was, one thing, everybody said, well, you need a good manager. I said, okay, I'll try a manager. But the problem with the manager is, I'm going to pay him a lot of money, and then I'm going to still tell him what to do. So why pay somebody to do what you're going to do yourself?
Yeah.
So, but that's not good business, guys. I'm not saying it's good business. That's just the way I approached it. As far as the car, you want to leave it to the crew chiefs, but you're going along, for example, or preparing for a race, or even during the race, you hear them make a call and decision, and you grit your teeth and say, look, guys, no, 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 no. And sometimes you just might step in and say, no, don't do that, do something different. But when your gut feeling is that you're 100% correct, it's hard to stand by and allow something to go on that you know is not going to be successful or won't work.
Right.
So that was my nature.
At what point did you decide to get out of the sport?
When the money stopped.
Uh-huh.
At 2003, I was fortunate enough to get involved with Sam Bell Navis because he had the support of the Army National Guard, and we were able to put together a deal to run the year. And then toward the end of the year, when it came clear to me, they never did tell me directly they weren't coming back, but I got wind that the thing was moving to Jack Rouse, and it left. We kept some people on for about a month or so working, preparing, and we worked diligently for about another year trying to find sponsors and didn't get any interest. And I said, I'm done. I can't battle it, can't compete in it. You know, when you're done, you're done, and when you beat, you beat.
Right.
You said that you haven't been back in a Cup garage since.
Not since that race at Homestead in 2003. Now I've been in the, what's the Xfinity garage, it was nationwide at that time.
Yeah.
And did that, and I did some ARCA racing. My son ran an ARCA car for a year at Larry Clement. And we did some Hooters Pro Cup racing, which incidentally, the Hooters Pro Cup racing is the most fun I ever had racing. But so we did some of that, but haven't been in a Cup garage since 2003.
What are you doing these days?
Piddle around. I don't do much. We have grandkids, and you know, you see them occasionally. And there's always something around the house to fix. I mean, you can find something to work on all the time. And I'm just, I just spend my time doing little odds and ends and stuff. I don't do specifically anything particular.
How would you like for race fans to remember Travis Carter?
I'd like to hope or think that they knew that I appreciated their efforts and their time and their money spent to come and watch what we did. And I always feel like that they were courteous to us and to the people in the press. I always felt like the press people treated me extremely well, to both of you guys and to all your colleagues. I mean, I just think you always treated me especially well. Not one complaint.
Good deal.